Hello, good evening indeed, and many thanks for joining us here on Rwanda Television News. We hope you had yourselves a productive week. Now, top of our edition tonight, these are our headlines. The President of the Republic of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, held discussions with the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, highlighting the good relations between the two countries and the need to further strengthen the bilateral partnerships. Today, August 9, 2022, the National Bank of Rwanda held a press conference on the stability of the financial sector. Glad to have your company tonight, coming to you straight from the heart of Africa, Kigali. My name is Martina Abera. The President of the Republic of Rwanda, President Paul Kagame, held discussions with the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, highlighting the good relations between the two countries and the need to further strengthen the bilateral partnerships. It's on day 2 of Secretary Blinken's visit to Rwanda that he once again reiterated the United States' support of the peace process that has been ongoing in the security issues in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Isabel Masozera has the report.
The activities of the second-day visit of the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken to Rwanda were preceded by discussions with Rwanda's President, His Excellency Paul Kagame, followed by a press conference. Before receiving and responding to questions from local and international journalists, Rwanda's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Vincent Biruta, gave a recount of what transpired during Secretary Blinken's dialogue with President Paul Kagame.
Earlier today, His Excellency the President of Rwanda received Secretary Blinken and his delegation. We had productive discussions about the partnership between our two countries. At the bilateral level, we appreciated our substantial cooperation in various sectors, including defense and security, trade and investment, peacekeeping, and health. The government of Rwanda appreciates the significant support of the U.S. government in the fight against COVID-19 in Rwanda, where the U.S. government contributed more than 5 million doses of vaccines and 100 medical ventilators to Rwanda. The U.S. continues to be indeed a strong partner in Rwanda's efforts to build a strong and resilient health system.
Among the issues raised during the press conference were the security concerns in the DRC. U.S. Secretary of State shared his country's position on the matter.
There are very credible reports of support for armed groups by all sides, including the FDLR, by Congolese forces, and M23 by Rwandans. And our position is clear. Whoever it's by, whoever it's to, that support needs to cease for any armed group. When it comes to the FDLR, it has sought to conduct attacks on Rwanda, and it's supported hateful ideologies. And we've seen support, as I said, we've seen reports of cooperation between Congolese forces and the FDLR. I raised this directly with the president in the Congo, and we are pressing again for that support to cease, just as we're pressing for any support to M23 to cease. These groups need to end the violence, demobilize, and pursue talks with the government. And as I noted, both leaders here in Rwanda and in the Congo made clear to me that they're prepared to engage in talks with the various armed factions as necessary in order to pursue their demobilization in the context of the process led by President Kenyatta and others, the Nairobi process. We'll continue to support that.
Nonetheless, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Vincent Biruta, then emphasized that Rwanda does not support the M23 rebel group and requested that in solving this security problem in the DRC to deal with the root causes of the problem. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on a 2-day working visit to Rwanda that comes after his visit to other African countries, including South Africa and the DRC. Isabel Masozera, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Isabel, for that report. Still on the matter, on Thursday, while attending a press conference hosted at Rwanda's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the U.S. State Secretary Antony Blinken was asked why the U.S. remains the only country globally that doesn't recognize the definition of the genocide as the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, a question he did not address. RBA's Isabel Masozera caught up with the Rwanda government spokesperson Yolande Makolo to explore her thoughts on Secretary Blinken's reaction, and this is what she had to say.
Well, this is a question that really should be asked to the U.S. government. We do not understand why they do not call the genocide by its name. It's the only remaining country in the world that refuses to use the nomenclature that was agreed by the UN unanimously. There were no protests at the time when this decision was taken, including from the US. So it's something that continues to puzzle us, and I think it's something that we need to keep asking about, because it's important. A genocide has a target. The Secretary has gone to visit the memorial today, so hopefully he'll get a better understanding of what happened here, who was targeted, and the context around what happened here in 1994. And we hope they will get to the point where they're able to name the genocide by its proper name.
Rwanda's spokesperson also shed light on the significance of Secretary Blinken's visit to Rwanda.
To welcome Secretary Blinken to Rwanda. It's an opportunity to discuss the strategic partnership that we've had with the U.S. for a long time. We've had good relations with the U.S. for decades now. We do a lot of good work together in many areas, including peace and security, including health, global health. We're looking to do more in terms of trade and investment, and we've had very productive discussions today.
Moving on, the government of Rwanda has once again cleared its position regarding those who think it can release any criminal due to pressure from the international community. Meanwhile, the U.S. has continued to call for the release of Paul Rusesabagina. Olive Nete has the report.
The issue of Paul Rusesabagina is one of the matters that were reiterated on during the second-day visit to Rwanda of the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. Blinken, who was received at Village Urugwiro and held discussions with the President, His Excellency Paul Kagame, pointed out that although the issue of Rusesabagina was discussed, no decision was made.
On the matter in the case of Paul Rusesabagina, what I can share with you today is that I raised this with President Kagame. We had a discussion about it. I'm not going to, again, characterize that. We'll continue to engage, and I'll also follow up with the family.
In a press conference, Blinken pointed out that his country believes that Rusesabagina did not receive a fair trial. But Rwanda's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Vincent Biruta, once again rejected that.
Paul Rusesabagina is a Rwandan citizen, and he was arrested, he was tried, and convicted along with 20 other accomplices for serious crimes they committed against Rwandan citizens, and which he committed while residing in the United States. And this was done lawfully under both Rwandan and international laws. Any other people could qualify these as international repression or whatever, but when we deal with people who commit crimes against our country, against our people, we abide by the laws, both national and international. Therefore, Rwanda will continue to abide by our laws and the decisions made by our judiciary. And we will request our partners to respect Rwanda's sovereignty, Rwanda's laws, and its institutions.
This is why Minister Biruta was very clear on the fact that Rwanda will not change its stand on Rusesabagina's case.
kugamburuzwa kwa guverinoma y'u Rwanda ngira ngo n'ubwa mbere byaba bibayeho mu mateka y'iki gihugu.
The Rwandan government has never given up so far, and it has no intention of giving up. He has been judged and sentenced. He is imprisoned, and he will complete his sentence. Every other thing that is related to his release, all of this has laws governing it, and there are things that need to be fulfilled so that those laws can be enforced. So to think that there is pressure that will make Rwandans wake up in the morning and hear that someone has been released just because of pressure of the international community, it is not going to happen. And also those who think about this pressure that things will get worse, it will not happen.
Rusesabagina was sentenced by the Rwandan justice to 25 years in prison after being convicted of terrorist crimes based on the attacks carried out by the MRCD FLN terrorist group that killed some residents in the west and south of Rwanda and injured others and also ruined their possessions. The victims of those attacks wished to have discussions with the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. Unfortunately, it wasn't possible. In a press conference, Blinken noted that even though he did not meet them, he understands their pain because he's used to meeting groups of people affected by war and conflicts. However, this dignitary visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial at Gisozi and paid tribute to the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi buried there. After visiting the historical site, Blinken wrote in the guest book that as someone from a family that survived the Holocaust, he appreciates the resilience of the survivors and the development of Rwanda. He notes that the United States of America will continue to support Rwanda in its journey of unity and reconciliation and rebuilding itself.
This is an incredibly powerful reminder of man's inhumanity to man. And also a very, very powerful incentive that we do everything in our power to never let anything of this kind happen again anywhere. It's so important to be reminded of that on a regular basis because we continue to see conflict and hate-driven conflict in different parts of the world with the potential for the past to be prologue. But what I find so powerful about this memorial is how it has taken something that it's very hard to get your hands around. 1 million people in such a short period of time. And it takes it down to the individuals, the men, the women, the children, whose lives were cut short, eradicated, their stories ended because of hatred and genocide.
During his visit to Rwanda, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also held discussions with members of the civil society and the staff of the United States Embassy in Kigali. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Thank you, Olive Nete, for that report. Now, the Rwanda's Parliament Chamber of Deputies has noted that the bilateral relationship with the Maldives Parliament is expected to benefit the private sectors of both countries. Adams Kwizera has the report.
This was revealed when the Speaker of Maldives Parliament, Mohamed Nasheed, with his delegation of members of Parliament of Maldives, held talks with the Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies, Honorable Donatille Mukabalisa, who was with the members of the Parliament of Rwanda. The Speaker of Maldives, Mohamed Nasheed, pointed out that the cooperation between the parliaments of the two countries has strong basis towards the vision of the development of the two countries.
I mentioned about the tourism trade in the Maldives and how the both countries can benefit from more engagement and more travel between Rwanda and the Maldives. The Maldives receives about 2 million tourists a year. We have a lot of international brands and local brands. We do resorts, and we think that there is a very big scope for us to come here and learn how you do your tourism, and also for companies in Rwanda to go to the Maldives and see how it is done there. Our second biggest industry is fishing. We do a lot of fishing one by one, and we export processed fish. I think that is also something that people of Rwanda might be interested in. We are certainly will be very interested in your fruits and vegetables and other many construction products that you produce for the development effort in the Maldives.
The Speaker of Rwanda's Parliament Chamber of Deputies, Honorable Donatien Mukabalisa, observed that the private sectors of Rwanda and Maldives will benefit from this bilateral relationship, and also there is establishing of friendship forums for the parliaments of the both countries.
Another thing we're looking forward is cooperation in tourism sector and also in fish farming sector, since they are the sectors our country wants to develop much. There are opportunities on every side as facilitating the private sector in making investments and doing business, hence that they will know what's possible there or here.
This is the second time the Speaker of Maldives Parliament has come to Rwanda, because in 2019 he visited different institutions in Rwanda, and he has also stated that he might come back in October this year. Adam Squizera, RTV News.
Thank you, Adams, for that report. Now, today, August 9th, 2022, the National Bank of Rwanda held a press conference on the stability of the financial sector. Noriat Agasaro has the report.
According to the Central Bank Governor of Rwanda, Honorable John Rwangombwa, the decision has been made to control inflation.
From the monetary policy point of view, we normally use our central bank rate, and as you see, we had to take an action, and now much bigger action than what we've done in the past, because the pressures we see have been really high. The policy rate is increased by 100 basis points, or by 1%, from 5% to 6%, to try and tame especially second round effects of this inflation. The primary driver of this inflation are supply driven shocks that we don't have any much control over, but we avoid this to end up into an inflation spiral. So that's why we are taking this strong action from the central bank point of view to avoid second-round effects of this inflation we see driven by agriculture and import inflation. We expect with this decision and other measures coming from government, we expect that inflation will go back to within our band by the second half of next year of 2023.
The general rate of prices on the market is predicted to rise by 12.1% in 2022 and will reach 5% in the second quarter of 2023. Rwanda's economy is expected to remain stable due to the fact that the rush of production of industry and services, which is used in a provisional way to determine the direction of the economy.
There's a lot of pressures on inflation. As we saw, there's pressures across the world. And this, of course, impacts us as well. So we see our inflation increasing to 12.1% in quarter 2 of this year, compared to 5.9% registered in the first quarter of this year. In fact, as you remember, last year, the entire average was 0.8%. So, but because of these global supply shocks linked to the war in Ukraine and the COVID effects that are not yet smoothened out, so we saw our inflation going up. When we look at the numbers we track, the composite index of economic activities, we see already Q2 of 2022, the numbers reducing to 10.7% compared to high double numbers we had in Q4 and Q1 this year. So this 10.7% indicates there's slowdown in the recovery or in the performance of the economy for this year.
The governor of Central Bank said on that the external trade continues to recover while merchandise exports rose by 32.2% compared to the same period last year, while merchandise imports rose by 24.5%.
On the external sector, we see good performance on our exports, growing by 32.2% this year, and this is the growth is across all the subsectors of our exports, whether the traditional exports, whether non-traditional exports, and re-exports, in fact, grew much, much faster than all the other sectors of our exports. So that's a positive trend we see. Unfortunately, the benefits we got from the increase in our export earnings, we are having it on import expenses as well. So we see our import bill increasing by 24.5%, and this is mainly driven by oil imports. So as you saw, globally oil has gone up, so this has really impacted on our import bill, and for that reason, because the import bill is growing from a much larger base compared to the export receipts, our trade deficit widened by 20.6%. That is in quarter 2 of this year.
In a press conference with journalists, it was announced that the National Bank of Rwanda lending rate to commercial banks was set at 6% from 5%. The general price index in the market is expected to increase by 12.1% in the year 2022, after an increase of 0.8% in the year of 2021. The index of industrial production and services, which is used provisionally to determine the direction of the economy, rose 10.7% in the second quarter of 2022, compared to an increase of 32.5% in the second quarter of 2021. The National Bank of Rwanda also says that due to climate change in the 2022, a crop season, food production will decrease by 1.2%, and thus its prices will increase. The value of the Rwandan currency decreased by 1.93% at the end of July 2022, compared to the end of December 2021. The value of the Rwandan currency decreased by 1.93% at the end of July 2022, compared to the end of December 2021. Agasaro Nuriat, RTV News.
Thank you, Agasaro Nuriat, for that report. Rwanda's National Institute of Statistics points out that prices in July saw an increase of 19.6% when put in comparison to those from a year ago, as well as a 16.1% increase in June. Members of the general public have said they are being careful with their spending as prices continue to increase. Precious Kirezi has a report.
As of July 2022, prices have experienced a 19.6% increase when put in comparison to last year, which is a 2.7% increase from 16.1% in June 2022. The National Institute of Statistics has pointed out that these drastic price changes come as a result of a 5.3% increase in the price of food and non-perishable beverages, as well as a 9.6% increase in the pricing of accommodation, water, electricity, and gas, to mention but a few. Prices in rural areas have increased by 22.5% as opposed to June's 17.9%. Food and beverage prices have increased by 34.5%, and accommodation, water, and electricity and gas prices have increased by 11.4%. Prices in urban areas have increased by 15.6% from June's 13.7%. These price changes have resulted from a 28.6% increase in the price of food and beverages, as well as a 7.5% increase in water, electricity, and gas prices, which then contributed to the 12.4% increase in transportation prices. Meal and accommodation prices have since increased by 17.2%. Residents have pointed out what effects the price changes are having on their consumption and shopping. The prices we're accustomed to aren't the ones we're paying now. What I bought today and what the capital I have normally affords me are very different. Residents have expressed how the distress they're experiencing due to price increase has put them in position to take measures to manage their consumption and assets strategically. When gas prices increase and therefore everything increases, we're left with no choice but to be very calculative and strategic about our spending. Some of the factors that played a key role in the nationwide price increase is the price of food and beverages that has hiked up by 32.7%, as well as accommodation, water, electricity, and gas prices that increased by 9.6%. Precious Chidezi, RTV News.
Now, on behalf of the news production team and I, we thank you so much for sticking with us on RTV News. Have a great night and stay safe.